As of the time of this video's release, BFDI is 15 years old and will be 16 soon, and over its runtime, many fan object shows have been made. Admittedly, most of them aren't exactly pinnacles of indie animation. However, sometimes you can get amazing shows, and I mean amazing shows. I've made videos like this in the past. However, in this video, I want to go in depth about what I believe to be the top 10 best object shows ever made. One is one of the most iconic and well-regarded object shows ever made, and for good reason. The show is super high quality and has amazing writing. It was way ahead of its time, I would say, being one of the first object shows to have a more serious tone. This did start a new genre of object shows, being less competition-based and more serious, which could be a positive or a negative thing depending on your viewpoint. However, no matter what you think of those, one is objectively an amazing show. It has a great story and has really cool details and symbolism, which you might not notice on your first watch. Some of you, however, may be wondering why I put it as low as 10th. This, I would say, is probably due to my own tastes. At some points, one is a bit slow, especially in the first few episodes. The later episodes of both seasons of the show completely make up for it, however, I can see why you would find it a little hard to get into on first watch. There were some storylines that were sidelined quite a bit in the second season, such as the competition itself, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, it would have been nicer to see some more of the contestants who were still there and how they were doing. Overall, however, these negatives are very small, and the pros completely make up for it. If you haven't watched this show yet, please do. It's one of my first recommendations when people ask what the best object shows to watch are. Brawl of the Objects is one of the oldest well-known object shows, first premiering in 2013, and surprisingly, despite its animation, it still holds up to this day. Brawl of the Objects has the charm that a lot of old object shows have, and it makes it such an enjoyable watch all the way through. While I can see why you might find this show boring or uninteresting, I do believe that it's got good writing and is really enjoyable to watch. In my opinion, this show comes the closest to replicating the original charm of the first Battle for Dream Island season. It has really great characters and very funny challenges. It has some great lore as well, along with having a hidden plot throughout the season that you have to pay attention to notice. And while many object shows mess up their finales, this show has one of the best finales of any object show I've ever seen, along with being one of the best object show episodes yet. I'd highly recommend giving this show a watch if you enjoy the style. I'm conflicted about Inanimate Insanity, and I feel like its one issue is that it progressively gets worse as it continues. Shockingly enough, my favourite season of the show is Inanimate Insanity Season 1. I just feel like its humour and charm just makes it really enjoyable to watch. Inanimate Insanity Season 2 is good as well. I like how serious it gets towards the middle of it. However, where it falls apart is after episode 15. They try and replicate the seriousness of its original writing. However, I just think it falls flat and tries way too hard to replicate the style. The twist at the end is an interesting concept, however in retrospect I think it just falls a bit flat. The finale itself falls flat throughout the whole thing, except for maybe episode 17, which I found pretty cool. However, where I really start to have issues with the show is the third season. I really don't think it knew what it wanted to be. The early episodes of that season were pretty decent, although admittedly pretty slow. However, it just gets so bland towards the end, and the writing quality is so poor at points. The antagonist of the season is really underwhelming, and the finale is so forgettable. The end of Inanimate Insanity Season 2 also pretty much undoes all the development Mifune had this season. Inanimate Insanity 4 is fine. I find it decent so far, even though it has pacing issues. However, I just don't feel like it needs to exist. Overall, the first season and the first half of the second season are great, and I love watching them and I would recommend it. However, I just feel like the show's writing really falls off towards the end. Still, the show's really good at some points and it's iconic for a reason. Zachary is one of the best creators in the Object Show community, and this is definitely one of their best works. The show has great writing and amazing visuals, along with one of the best Object Show casts of all time. The show does a great job at balancing its serious tone with its humorous tone, and it mixes itself into a show that can really appeal to anyone. Bean becoming more deranged as the show goes on, and the whole fungus plotline is really interesting to watch unfold. And it adds some real stakes to the show, as at any moment your favourite character could pretty much just be killed off. One of my only issues with the show is that the elimination order is a bit flawed. I believe some of the characters that got out early really needed some more time to stay in the show, and there are quite a lot of uninteresting characters still here. However, it doesn't really affect it too much. This is without a doubt one of the highest quality shows in the OFC. Please check it out if you haven't already. Despite this show's somewhat bad reputation in the community, I still really love Animatic Battle. The show has some of the best quality I've ever seen in an Object Show, and it has amazing writing, humor, all of that. While I do think some of the cast is a bit forgettable, the majority of the cast are some of the funniest Object Show characters I've seen, with some highlights being characters like Jej, Printer, Raid, Kane Scub, and many others. The whole style of the show is just really pleasant, and it really screams BFB pre-split charm. However, I really hope Animatic Battle 4 is worth the wait. A show with a cast this large really shouldn't be taking that long to release episodes. I get there are many issues with production, but at this rate I don't see the show finishing at any point. Still, even with the limited amount of content, it's very rewatchable and an entertaining show. BFDI. This will obviously be a lot of people's favourites, and that makes sense. It was the first, it's the longest running, and the most popular. There's a lot to cover here, so I'll just do it pretty quickly. BFDI and early BFDIA are some of the best parts of the show. They have early Object Show charm and set everything in place for the Object Show community to happen. They're very enjoyable parts of the show, if a little bit low quality. However, the quality massively improves as of the release of BFB, with a whole new animation style and a big team to help create the episodes. That quality remained pretty consistently into Teapot, even though in my opinion it has some writing issues, overall making most of the show a very high quality and enjoyable watch. However, I can't deny the show has some low points, and I mean low points. The entirety of BFB post-split was such a drag to get through, and it feels so corporate, losing all of the charm of BFDI. Even though I dislike the direction they take for BFDIA post-hiatus, I still enjoy it for most of its run, although I did wish they stuck with the same style as the original BFDIA. Teapot, while flawed, is still a very great addition to the show, and I feel like it could definitely be the best season. Just if they managed to stick with the same sort of writing quality throughout the show instead of drastically changing styles. Of course, this is the series that started the whole Object Show community, and it was just made by two 10-year-olds, which is super impressive. It's amazing how that has been able to create a series that's gone on for 15 and a half years and has spawned a community of millions of people. The show really does deserve all the credit it gets. However, I still think there are a few shows that just beat it out in terms of quality and enjoyment. Despite this show's popularity, I never see many people talking about it, which is such a shame because its storytelling, animation, writing, voice acting, and basically everything is just so perfect. Well, admittedly there's nothing standoffish about this show. That's what's honestly good about it. It's just your classical Object Show with a lot of high quality writing. It has some really dramatic scenes at some point, and can be quite emotional too, which is really good if an Object Show can do that. The character dynamics are awesome in this show, and a lot of arcs are super endearing. The show suffered a bit early on due to its viewer voting aspect, however it's recently switched to contestant vote, which has made it much better for storytelling. The show has had quite a lot of episodes too, so it's a really good show to binge watch. I would really recommend doing that if you haven't already. There's a high chance you haven't heard of this object show, which is a real shame how underrated it is, because it's genuinely a top 3 object show for me. This object show, dare I say, has the best cast of any object show. It is so funny throughout the whole series. This object show too is what you might consider a joke show, as it has quite short episodes that released weekly in its first season. However, it really ups the quality in its second season, having much longer episodes, although they do take a bit more time to produce. This doesn't matter too much though, as the visuals and animation are stunning and the writing quality is just absolutely amazing. I don't think I've ever had as much fun watching an object show for the first time as this show. It's seriously so underrated, please go show some support to it. I'm considering making a whole separate video about why this show is so good and a ranking of all the characters and episodes, because it's just so amazing. Even a lot of the characters that don't have much screen time are still so enjoyable, and there's characters that absolutely steal the show like Balut, Missing Dog Poster, Chrome Gradient Tea, and I can go on. The most recent episode being episode 6 is one of my favourite object show episodes of all time, and the animation quality is just so lovely to look at. Please check this show out. This and the first place show on my list were really close together, so this could have easily been first place if it weren't for personal preference, but The Nightly Manor is such an amazing show. The quality and detail put into each frame of this object show is truly amazing. It has one of the most unique concepts for a show I've seen, the first part taking place in a murder mystery type scenario, and the second part focusing on the survivors and the past of those who died. It gives a lot of development and personality to each character in this object show, and makes them all interesting in their own ways. While the first part of the show did have a few bits that didn't make sense and a little bit of flawed writing, it's still a great watch, and the regular episodes made up for it. However, the second part of the show truly blows it out of the water, especially the finale. The montage scene with GPS followed by the bit at the end where he relives his best memory is really emotional, and in my opinion makes it the second best object show episode to ever release. So much care was put into this object show and it all together makes such a great watch. However, there is just one show that I believe beats it. This is another show that a lot of people watching probably haven't heard of, which is such a shame because Village of Objects is the best object show ever made in my opinion. While admittedly the first 5 episodes are a bit slow, they still have a lot of charm and scream 2018 object shows. However, you can really notice the upgrade in animation quality and writing after the 6th episode. The show gradually gets better as it goes on, and I don't want to spoil anything, but towards the finale, the plot gets so intense, leading to one of the best object show endings I've ever seen. They recently announced a 2nd season, which I was initially opposed to at first, but after seeing the first 2 episodes, I'm in full support of it. They are so good. The 2nd episode of the 2nd season is, in my opinion, the best object show episode ever made. Please check the show out if you haven't already, it is so good. So those were my picks for the top 10 object shows. I realize a lot of these are quite unpopular, so please check some of them out if you haven't. And feel free to leave your own opinions in the comment section. This is a new sort of style of video for me because I haven't done any commentary based videos for quite a while, so please leave feedback in the comment section if you'd like more of these. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.